Welcome to TPM Vid's Disney Beat, where we talk about all things Disney. If this is your first time watching the channel, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Since the inception of both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, the parks were built with unique attractions, all thanks to Walt Disney Imagineering. The Imagineers have designed dark rides, spinners, water rides, thrill rides, attractions for the entire family. Now there's many attractions that are very successful and have become Disney classics, such as Pirates of the Caribbean, Splash Mountain, Thunder Mountain, It's a Small World, Haunted Mansion, and the list goes on. Although the Disney theme parks are a magical place where everything seems perfect, not every attraction Walt Disney Imagineering built has been perfect. There have been a few attractions built in Disney theme park history that didn't quite meet expectations, and some that were just complete flops. So today, we're going to be counting down the top 5 failed Disney rides and attractions. Number 5. The Flying Saucers. 1961 marked the year when Disneyland opened the Flying Saucers attraction in Tomorrowland. It was located on the footprint where Space Mountain's queue and the Magic Eye Theater is today. This ride gave guests a chance to float on air, control their own ride vehicle, and possibly engage in a futuristic version of bumper cars, or bumper saucers to be more exact. The blue platform sat on a basement below the ground that blew air up through the holes of the floor. As you sat in the vehicle, you would lean your body to the left or right, which would cause your saucer to move across the platform. It was a pretty cool looking ride, and it definitely fit the futuristic look of Tomorrowland. Although guests really grew to enjoy this attraction, there were some downsides to it. Little kids had some trouble if they didn't weigh enough and were too light. The saucer would just sit there in one spot, bouncing up and down if they tried leaning to either side, sometimes even knocking the rider out of the saucer. And if you were a bit too big, the saucer wouldn't move at all. It was an operations nightmare back in the 60s that required upwards of 25 cast members to start in the morning, as well as 15 cast members to maintain the ride, according to a past Disneyland operations director. It was one of those rides that would constantly break down, since the ride's technology wasn't really perfected, not to mention that it didn't have good rider capacity either. Ride technicians did their best trying to keep it operational, but they eventually gave up. And in 1966, the Flying Saucers, along with many other attractions in the land, closed to make way for a newly reimagined Tomorrowland that would open in 1967. When Tomorrowland reopened, guests weren't too thrilled that the Flying Saucers were no longer at the park. And according to former Imagineer Tony Baxter,
even to this day, you hear people talking about, when are you guys going to bring back the Flying Saucers?
Well, that year just happened to be 2012. Number 4. Luigi's Flying Tires. As part of the $1.1 billion renovation and expansion plan for Disney California Adventure, Cars Land would open in 2012. One attraction that was part of the new land was Luigi's Flying Tires, which paid homage to the old Flying Saucers attraction at Disneyland. Imagineers took a crack at this concept once again. This time, instead of using single-rider vehicles, Imagineers designed a much larger vehicle in the shape of giant tires that could fit up to 3 riders. In the same fashion as the Flying Saucers, the ride vehicles were designed to have riders lean to either side, which would move the tire across the platform. The ride looked cool, but Luigi's Flying Tires encountered problems even before it opened. For starters, when Bob Iger, CEO of the Walt Disney Company, tested the ride, he was extremely underwhelmed. Iger immediately went to the Imagineers and said it needed to go faster, but the Imagineers told him the ride vehicles were going as fast as they could. So Imagineers went back to the drawing board and quickly came up with a plan. Originally, the ride didn't have a soundtrack, so they created 8 Italian-style songs as well as adding beach balls for guests to throw around, like what was seen in the Flying Saucers promotional footage in the 60s. They also added an additional 45 seconds to the ride, since it would take riders more time to figure out how to make the tires move. All this was done as an attempt to make the ride experience more livelier for the guests. Only about 60 days after opening, Disney began receiving lawsuits regarding injuries from impromptu games of beach ball dodgeball, so naturally they were removed. They also never solved the problem of the ride vehicles moving too slow either. So there would be many times when your tire would move at a snail's pace, or not even move at all. On top of all this, people kept tripping as they were getting out of the ride vehicle due to its bulky design, resulting in ongoing small injuries such as twisted ankles and scraped knees. Disney's legal team saw this as a major lawsuit waiting to happen. So in February of 2015, just 2.5 years after its opening, and with very low guest satisfaction scores, the ride closed to be reimagined into a trackless ride called LUIGI'S Rollickin' Roadsters. Number 3. Journey into Your Imagination. Now you might be saying, wait, Journey into Imagination is still open at Epcot. And you're right, but we're talking about Journey into Your Imagination. So back in 1983, a little ride called Journey into Imagination opened in Future World at Epcot. The ride's two protagonist characters, the Dreamfinder and Figment, explored the power of imagination in this one-of-a-kind 12-minute Omni-Mover dark ride, which also featured the Sherman Brothers composed song, One Little Spark. The ride's characters became the ride. Epcot fans adored these characters. In October of 1998, Journey into Imagination 1.0 closed to make way for what was to be a substantial improvement to the original ride. But this was far from reality. Journey into Your Imagination opened in October of 1999 and was lackluster to say the least, since the budget for the ride was severely cut. The ride's new incarnation took riders in the Imagination Institute, where you'd be testing out the Institute's new imagination scanner, capable of telling you just how creative you are. After traveling through a series of different experiments that test your imagination, at the very end, you'd learn that you're a creative genius. Go figure. The new ride was very different from the 1.0 version. Although it removed the problematic turntable issue the original faced, it also removes about 40% of the original ride track length, taking the ride from 12 minutes to approximately 5. Everything from the original ride was gone, including the use of Figment and the Dreamfinder characters and animatronics, as well as the beloved One Little Spark song. Figment only appeared once on screen for a brief couple seconds just before the ride ended. Hardly the representation you'd be expecting this character to receive. The ride just felt bare, was too short, and lacked the heart and soul that you'd usually find in Disney attractions. It was very un-Disney of Disney. It was not received well at all. Everyone hated it, from guests to cast members to the pavilion sponsor Kodak, who at the time didn't have an actual say in the attraction's refurb design and concept. Even former CEO at the time, Michael Eisner, hated it. What was once the highest rated attraction at Epcot in its original form, Journey into Your Imagination became the lowest rated attraction at the park. Disney had no choice but to quietly close the ride on October 8th, 2001. And you know a ride is really bad when Disney closes it just 2 years after opening it. With the closure, Michael Eisner, who hated Journey 2.0, allotted a $5 million budget to refurb the ride once again into what we know now as Journey into Imagination with Figment. This new version was Disney's attempt at saying, yeah, we kinda screwed up, so we brought back as many references to the original ride as we could. This time, Figment had a much larger presence and was placed into every scene. Imagineers refurbed all the old Figment animatronics from the original ride, and brought back the One Little Spark song and used it throughout the entire ride as well.
It's just that spark, but we hand you in One Little Spark.
Number 2. The Rocket Rods. The 1967 refurbishment of Tomorrowland in Disneyland introduced the People Mover to the theme park. It was an elevated track around the land that took guests on a grand circle tour above Tomorrowland. The ride unfortunately closed in August of 1995, as part of another overhaul that Tomorrowland would be receiving between 1995 to 1998. During this reimagination of the land, Imagineering decided it would be a great idea to repurpose the old People Mover tracks into what became the Rocket Rods, a dragster-style thrill attraction. It was supposed to be a more intense and thrilling experience than that of the People Mover, turning the former 16-minute ride into a 3-minute experience. Like the People Mover, Rocket Rods offered an overhead view of Tomorrowland at a more rapid pace. The ride started off with a quick launch, but then at every turn, the vehicle had to slow down, since due to budget cuts and the loss of GM as a sponsor, they kept the flat people mover tracks and didn't install banked turns. The entire ride was filled with speeding up and slowing down, over and over and over again. Upon opening, the ride did have mixed reactions from guests. Some claimed it wasn't thrilling enough to be considered a thrill ride, and some said it was too thrilling when comparing it to the People Mover. Not to mention that wait times were ridiculously long for this ride. On top of the mixed reactions, Rocket Rods also started to experience some mechanical issues. The infrastructure of the People Mover support beams and track weren't altered at all, since they were working with the tight budget. With the constant speeding up and slowing down, this put a lot of stress on the track and ride vehicles. Only weeks after opening, the ride went down for a 3-month maintenance period to try and address some of the issues. The ride reopened in fall of 1998, and even after the 3-month closure, it was still constantly breaking down, becoming very unreliable. It would later be discovered that due to the speed of the vehicles, the People Mover support beams were also becoming structurally unsafe, showing signs of cracks, and even some concrete broke off the beams. It's also said that one instance of concrete breaking off ended up in a lawsuit with Disney. In September of 2000, the ride closed once again for another refurb, announcing it would reopen again in spring of 2001. Well, spring of 2001 came and went, and the ride didn't reopen. In May 2001, Disneyland issued an official press release stating that Rocket Rods will close permanently due to the complexities of operating the ride. Number 1. Superstar Limo. Disney California Adventure opened on February 8, 2001, with Superstar Limo being one of the opening day attractions, which just happened to be the only dark ride in the park at the time. You boarded a stretch limo when you got a call from your puppet wax-figured real human-handed agent.
Just get to the Chinese theater pronto, you hear me?
The ride then took you on a very slow-paced journey through a variety of stereotypical Hollywood locations and situations that included caricature-style celebrities through the use of very, very basic animatronics.
How about a map to your house, Drew Carey?
These were no A100 figures. The ride featured a lot of inside Hollywood gags that really only amused people in the entertainment industry, like Michael Eisner. It was a bizarre attraction that really just added to the lukewarm response Disney California Adventure was getting at the time. What a lot of people don't know, though, is that this ride concept wasn't what was originally intended. Originally, the guest took on the role of a big-time celebrity who was late to the premiere of their new movie. The limo driver would get you there as quick as possible, only then to be chased by the paparazzi. This would result in the driver trying to evade the paparazzi, taking riders on a much more thrilling and quicker ride through Hollywood, more at the speed of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. While Superstar Limo was in development, the world lost Princess Diana on August 31st, 1997, while her limo driver was trying to evade the paparazzi. Disney couldn't continue with their original concept after this event. Superstar Limo was shelved for a little while, but then was reimagined into the concept that opened in 2001. There were very few references made to the paparazzi in this new version, and the ride vehicles moved as slow as possible so no one would make a connection between the ride and Princess Diana. The guest reaction to the attraction was so negative that on January 11th, 2002, less than a year after opening, Disney closed Superstar Limo. People said Journey into Your Imagination was very un-Disney, but this ride takes the cake. Really, it looked like something you'd see at Six Flags and didn't belong in a Disney park. So in your opinion, which would you say is Disney's biggest failed attraction? Either from this list, or maybe there's even another ride that we didn't mention. Leave a comment down below and start a conversation. If you have any videos from the Disney parks that you'd like to share with us to be used in future videos, follow the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. Click the TPM icon on the screen to subscribe to this channel, and check out some of these other videos which we're sure you'll like.